What it do, what it do, it's your boy at BTV, and we back at it with another YouTube video. And we're just gonna be Dead by Daylight, talking about Alien and its pros and its cons. Now, if y'all already know, Alien is very problematic in many different scenarios. He does not follow the laws of regular killers. He is by far the most somewhat unique killer to come to the game. Um, has very little cooldown to being able to move around the map, high mobility, can literally end chases within 2.2 freaking seconds with his tail attack. His tail attack can actually down people, and he also can M1 people too. So there's a lot of complaints that are going around about Alien being too powerful and too strong and yada yada yada. I can agree to a certain extent. Alien is powerful, I'm not gonna lie. He is strong when it comes to chase and mobility. I give him that. I really give him that. He can end loops if you hit your shots with his tail, and he can really close a chase and start a new chase within a couple of seconds. If there's one thing that I noticed and I've seen is that going against Alien, you have to prioritize on generators and setting turrets. Really, not really looping Alien, but more or less of prepping for him, knowing that he's going to show up at some point, and you just need to be ready to run. Hold W, set up turrets so he loses power, and you're just running the whole time. So that's the problem that I kind of see is that there's not really a whole lot to do with his power, other than you're hitting people over stuff. But the biggest problem is that once you lose that power, he's really hindered useless. You really can't do anything, and the power doesn't come back right away when you lose it. You only gain it fast after going in your tunnels. So there was one thing I could say to add and probably fix this problem is to slightly nerf his tail. Not necessarily probably nerfing the speed on it, maybe nerfing it a little bit, but adding a effect on it to where it can no longer down people, but it can do something else. It can add a deep wounds, maybe hemorrhage, or even adding an acid effect where this acid blood is on the survivors and they have to get it off of them a certain amount of time, or they're going to start screaming, or they're going to do this or whatever. Doing that, I feel like would actually balance Alien out, and people won't complain about the tail so much. It will also allow Alien to actually slow the game down, giving survivors something completely different to do other than just sitting on generators and just doing generators, because that's the best thing that you can do against this killer is just stay away from the killer. And then if the killer shows up, run and run to a turret that can take him out of his power. Take him out of his power, he really can't end chases or do really anything in that matter. And I think that's what's the problem, because these survivors, once they figure out how to really play against Alien really ain't shit. You can teleport, you can move your mobility, you can build these high freaking meta builds or whatever, but the ultimate reality is once you get pulled out of your power, you really ain't shit. You can get looped for days. They're wasting time. They're gonna burn through generators, and then you wind up losing the game. And there's just really not a whole lot you can do in some situations. Now, I'm not gonna say that he's weak. He's far from weak. I've been plenty of times where I have slaughtered teams, even really good teams, without really any effort, because of his tail. The tail just ends chase. It just does crazy stuff. Um, so I do think that it could use a nerf. Um, Now, does it need to be a big nerf? No. But it needs to be something to where it can still work in the roles of being a killer, um, and still be enjoyable, right? And have the ability to slow the game down, add a different atmosphere to this killer. Um, Maybe even applying face huggers as an add-on or something to give this killer a way to actually slow the game down, because just because you can slug people, and a lot of people, that's the way that they're playing the Alien right now, is just slugging out people, because that's really the best way to play them, and that's not really the funnest way to play them. There's just ways where you can use stealth and you can use whatever, but there's not a whole lot you can do because of these turrets. Like I said, they take you out your power, and then you don't have anything else other than go back into the tunnel, which you can't hurt anybody inside the tunnel. So you're really hindered, useless when you're taken out of your power, and um, there's no limit on these turrets. There's no cooldown on these turrets, just like there's no cooldown on tunnels. And I feel like they did that on purpose, because the fact that the alien can go in tunnels when they really want, they can grab as many turns as they want. But there's definitely got to be a nerf bug between the turrets and, helping the survivors out a little bit with the tail attack, um, because you can really run some crazy builds with Alien that can make him not really fun to play against. Like, for instance, having his tail combined with rapid brutality and save your best for last is just OP. Just those two perks are OP, and those are not even gem regressive perks, you know. And then if you add like bamboozle and maybe like jolt or eruption or whatever, or even call a brine, all those perks put together and you mix them up, you're gonna come out with a pretty good solid build. And it's just gonna be broken for Alien, just really broken. Um, there's not a whole lot to really say about his pros. I mean, we know his pros. His pros are really the simple fact that, he can move around the map very freaking well. He can hit over pallets and really cause that pressure to really set in and make that survivor make a decision. Either I'm going to keep looping or I'm going to run. And most of the time it's run, which is a good decision, because there's not a whole lot you can do with Alien because of his tail. But without his tail, you have all the options in the world. You can loop him, you can play around with him, you can do whatever. But as soon as he gets his tail, that's a game changer right there. And Alien does need his power, and if this was taken away from him, it's going to have to be something, like I said, face huggers, something that can actually slow the game down. But the biggest thing is that it needs to be something that can actually just give a different taste, Like, all his tail is just a longer coup de grace M1. That's all it is. It's just a long. It's a long M1 that can shoot range, and it's just kind of boring, I would say. Like, as far as like, he's just too basic, in my personal opinion. Like, he's just like, they didn't really put in a lot of thought of any of it. It was just like, oh yeah, just give him a tail attack, and then he can M1 too, and then he just drops down in his stance and he can crawl around in tunnels. Yeah, that's a great power. They didn't really put any real thought process on, okay, let's give him the face hugger. He can do this and he can do that. And then survivors gonna have to make a decision. Either they're gonna take the alien off their face, or they can do generators. But then at some point they're gonna have an alien coming out their chest, and it's just gonna cause more problems. So stuff like that will be so much fun, you know. And even let's say that a crazy idea would be, okay, well, if a chest burster pops out, uh, after 2 or 3 minutes, the chest burster grows into a full alien and walks around on map for a couple of like a whole minute or whatever, chasing survivors. And the more chest bursters you get out of people, the crazier it gets, and you're in this whole alien infestation type thing. Now that would be crazy, but we already have somebody like Nemesis that literally can have zombies walking around the map, hurting people. Now, do they move fast? No, but that's just an idea. That's just something that can be put out there because it's already kind of being done, you know. So, but I don't know. They got to do something with Alien because it's getting to a point to where he's not really being enjoyable enough to keep playing him over and over and over again because, like I said, survivors are understanding that as long as they keep their distance and their range and they just work on generators and they really don't want nothing to do with Alien, they're going to burn through generators. They're going to win games. Now, these 2 games, I chose the worst gameplay I could ever find as far as just me not really playing that well, but playing okay, but not really that well. And just you being able to see the flaws and the pros of Alien at the same time. Now, there's plenty of clips where of me hitting people over pallets, I'm missing my shots, but then there's clips where I'm just doing everything that I can at the moment, and I wind up still getting gen rushed because Alien really doesn't have any pressure when it comes to his base kit. He doesn't really have any. He has chase pressure. He can end chases. He's a really good chaser. But when it comes to his overall pressuring the whole map, he doesn't really have that. And even though he can get around the map fairly quickly, it still doesn't really apply a whole lot of pressure because all they got to do is hold W, run, and then as soon as I start that initial chase, they're just going to get right back on that generator. And it's smart because that's what you got to do with a killer like this, because a killer that has the potential to end chases in 2.3 seconds, you need to be getting on the generators right away. And I feel like that's just not fun. It's not fun trying to stop survivors. You know what I'm saying? There's really nothing I can do. Now, if I would have had like a face hugger or whatever that I could have set that the generator, and the person comes back but he gets hit with a face hugger, now he can't do generators, or he's gotta go get the face hugger out their face. That's gonna make it so much harder for these survivors to do generators and rush me, and it gives me time to actually play the game, to enjoy it, and it gives them time to do something else other than do generators. So I think, my proposal is pretty valid. It's pretty balanced. I want both sides to win because I feel like both sides should be able to enjoy the killer. Both sides should be able to enjoy survivor mode, and just being a part of, the Dead by Daylight community and just enjoying the game. But nobody wants to just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, And I feel like Alien's just kind of rinse and repeat type of a killer. It's really not a whole lot in his kit. It was just like, all right, we're going to put this together. Here you go. And it's just not enough. So hopefully when they do this rework, kind of how they did Freddy, hopefully they don't nerf Alien to the ground to where he can't be used anymore. But they just balance him out. Change his tail effect. Change his tail to where it no longer can down people, but it can inflict acid wounds, and it do deep acid wounds, and it just does a slow down effect, or it causes survivors to get sick or hurt or in a certain way to where they can't do a certain thing. Like they can't heal on their own, but they can still do generators. and until they get the acid off, and then they can heal on their own if they got a med kit or whatever. But something of that sort where a survivor has to do something else other than generators to help slow the game down, but also make the game a little bit more challenging for the survivors, and give the killer an option to play it differently other than just slugging survivors out, because that's what I've been noticing in a lot of different builds that I've been seeing. It's really just slugging builds. They're not really anything super creative. It's because that's just the best way to play the killer, because if you play the killer anywhere else, he's really not going to be successful. And everybody's trying to be successful. But that's just my thought process on it. Let me know what y'all think on the whole 9 yards. Like I said, I believe that the killer deserves a rework, but I don't think that he needs to be nerfed to the ground. I think he just needs to touch up on certain abilities, and it needs to be just, tweaked to where nobody can really complain about him too much, and go from there. But I'll be MD signing off, and I will catch y'all in the next one.